My name is Thelma Whitman. I'm 27 years old. And this is the story of how I was kicked out of my parents' house with nothing but a suitcase, only to cash a $31.8 million lottery ticket before sunrise. It happened on a Thursday. I still remember the date. October 12th. The Florida sky was dark with incoming rain, and the smell of dinner still lingered in the air when my father told me I had until morning to leave the house. No discussion. No chance to explain. No goodbyes. Why? Because I refused to live the life they picked for me. My parents, Ruth and Walter Whitman, have always been the kind of people who only recognize success when it comes with a 401k, a corporate badge, and a dental plan. My older sister, Danielle, is their poster child, MBA, married, management-level executive with a perfectly arranged social media presence and weekly brunch photos. Me? I make jewelry. Handmade. Custom. Designed from stones, wire, and metal. Art, if you ask me. Trash, if you ask my dad. The final blow came that night at dinner. I had just mustered every ounce of courage I had left to tell them I'd quit my job at Carmichael & Wells, the accounting firm they helped me land after college. I explained my plan. I had the spreadsheets, the revenue graphs, the social media stats. My side business, Grace Studio, had taken off. I was earning more than my day job now, and I was finally ready to go full-time. Dad didn't even look at the papers. He scoffed, picked up his wine glass, and said, "You think glitter and copper wire will pay your health insurance?" I sat still. Calm. Until he stood and said, "If you're done pretending, be done for real. You're out. Tonight." I thought he was bluffing. But when I went upstairs to pack a few things, I returned to find my phone plan cancelled. My car keys gone. The car, which they co-signed, locked in the garage. My mom didn't even look at me. She just placed a brown paper bag with a sandwich and water near the door. That was her goodbye. I rolled my suitcase into the rain with $342 in cash and a maxed-out credit card. My breath caught in my throat when the bus pulled away, leaving the only home I'd ever known behind like it had never been mine. I found shelter at a grim little roadside motel just outside Tampa, Lakeview Inn. The K and E in the neon sign were dead, so it just read LAANN, which somehow felt like a bad joke. The front desk clerk, an older woman named Gladys, looked at me once and said, "Room 7. Heat and hot water." That's about it. I thanked her. Paid cash. Then sat alone on the creaky bed, dripping, heart hollowed out. And that's when I remembered. It was Friday. Lottery night. Grandma Elise and I used to buy tickets together every Friday night. Same numbers every time, 11, 26, 34, 42, 47, 55. Even after she passed away, I kept buying them out of habit. A little ritual. A thread connecting me to the only person who ever truly believed in me. I dug out the crumpled ticket from my wallet, smoothed it on the stained motel nightstand, and opened the Florida Lottery app. System under maintenance. Of course. Defeated, I crawled under the blanket and told myself I'd check again in the morning. It wasn't like I expected to win. It just kept her memory alive. The rain hammered the metal roof all night, like the world itself was trying to drown me out. But then, morning came. And everything changed. I woke up with stiff limbs and sore eyes. It was barely 7:30 a.m. A delivery truck honked on the road nearby. I sat up, blinking hard, and instinctively reached for my phone. The notification lit up before I even unlocked it. "Your numbers match the Florida Power Draw jackpot." I blinked. No way. I scrambled to the nightstand, hands shaking, and checked the ticket. 11, 26. 34, 42. 47, 55. I refreshed the lottery site. Again. And again. The numbers matched. All 6. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, the entire motel spinning around me, while the app calculated the total. 81 million. After taxes? I'd later learn it was exactly $31.8 million deposited into an anonymous trust one set up within 72 hours. But that morning? I was still Thelma Whitman, broke and homeless with a soaking suitcase, wearing yesterday's makeup. I pressed the call button on the lottery website's contact page. Florida Lottery Office, this is Natalie speaking. How may I help you? I could barely form words. I think I won. Big. I mean, really big. She took down my ticket information, serial number, and location. There was a pause. Then her voice came back, slightly more formal. Miss Whitman, your ticket is valid. You've won the full power draw jackpot. Congratulations. And just like that, the woman the world laughed at for chasing dreams became a multimillionaire. Before sunrise. But no one knew. Not yet. Because I wasn't just going to celebrate. I was going to rise. Quietly. Calmly. Completely. And they, my parents, my sister, every person who ever told me I was foolish, would have no idea what was coming. Until it was too late. I didn't move from that motel bed for nearly an hour after the call. My fingers were still clutching the edges of the lottery ticket like it might disappear if I let go. The plastic keycard to room 7 sat on the nightstand beside me, and I stared at it as if it now held the door to more than just a cheap room with flickering lights and peeling wallpaper. It was real. The Florida Lottery Office confirmed it. I had one. Not 1,000. Not 1,000,000. $31.8 million. After taxes. Cold, hard, life-redefining truth. But instead of jumping and screaming, I felt an eerie calm. Like my body had gone into emotional lockdown. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just a miracle. It was my reckoning. My rebirth. My quiet revenge. The first thing I did, just like Grandma Elise taught me, was sign the back of the ticket. Sloppy handwriting or not, it was mine now. Then, I took a long, slow breath and walked out to the front desk. Gladys was sipping a mug of instant coffee, her glasses resting on the bridge of her nose. Rough night, she asked without looking up. I nodded. You have no idea. I need your help. Anne. I need you to keep a secret. She raised an eyebrow, finally giving me her full attention. I leaned forward and whispered, I just won the lottery. And I'm not ready for anyone to know yet. I want to handle this smart. Quiet. Safe. Gladys didn't blink. Didn't gasp. Just nodded like I'd told her I'd bought a new umbrella. You got a plan? I need someone who understands finance. Someone discreet. Someone I can trust. She thought for a second, then said, my nephew. Marcus Abrams. Used to work at Wells Fargo managing portfolios. Now runs his own firm in Orlando. Smart. Keeps his mouth shut. By 10 a.m., I was sitting in Marcus's office. It was on the second floor of a weathered brick building overlooking Lake Eola, modest, tidy, no flash. Just what I needed. Marcus was in his early 40s, well-dressed, with calm eyes and a voice that didn't rush. After introducing himself, he looked across the desk and said, So, unexpected finances, huh? I didn't say anything at first. Just pulled the ticket from my purse, signed and sealed, and placed it in front of him. He blinked. Once. Then leaned in slightly. You confirmed it? I nodded. This morning. It's real. And I want it protected. Marcus didn't ask unnecessary questions. He slid a legal-sized folder across the desk. We can create a blind trust. You'll remain anonymous. I'll act as trustee and help manage the funds. If you want, we can start dispersing small amounts to an entirely new account, off the grid. We spent 3 hours going over the legal steps. Terms. Conditions. Options. Then he asked, "How much do you want to access right now?" I thought for a moment. My fingers fidgeted with the hem of my sleeve. 200,000, I said. Enough to move. To live. To begin. But nothing flashy. No mansion. No BMW. I don't want anyone to know. I want to build something. On my terms. Done, he replied. 2 days later, I had a new identity, on paper at least. A personal account linked to a trust under the name E. Whitman Holdings, and a prepaid debit card with a clean, untraceable record. I used that card to rent a small third-floor studio apartment in Baldwin Park. It overlooked the lake, had huge windows for natural light, and was nestled between a quiet bookstore and a flower shop. It felt like something out of a dream I never dared to speak aloud. I paid a full year's rent in advance. The apartment was unfurnished, but I didn't need much. A mattress on the floor. A used wooden table for my jewelry work. A portable toolkit I ordered online. A few jars of stones. And silence. Blissful, uninterrupted, golden silence. For the first time in my life, no one could tell me what to do. No one could steal my dreams or stomp on them with their size 11 corporate expectations. I called it my little sanctuary. A nest I was finally allowed to build. But more than that, it was my lab. My studio. My launchpad. Because I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to thrive. I was going to create something so beautiful, so undeniable, that the world would have to take notice. That's when the name came to me. Not E. Grace Studio. That belonged to the version of me who worked undercover, sneaking around like a child afraid to be caught. No, this was something new. Braver. I called it Elise and Company. For the woman who never once told me to be more practical. Who wore my seashell earrings with pride. Who whispered, "Create what only you can." And Company? That was for all the other dreamers who were once dismissed, told to grow up, told they weren't enough. I hired a web designer, a young woman named Zoe who lived down the hall in my building. She was in her last year of media design and lit up the moment she heard my story. "We're going to make this brand unforgettable," she said. And we did. In 3 weeks, we launched a soft website. Minimalist layout. Cream white backdrop. Natural light product shots. Every piece was tied to a story from my childhood, to memories of Grandma Elise. The porch light necklace. The sewing box bracelet. The afternoon tea hairpin. I didn't announce it to friends. I didn't even use my real name. I just uploaded one photo to the brand's Instagram, formerly E. Grace Studio, now at eliseco.jewelry, with a simple caption. Beauty born from rainstorms. Handmade with memory and grace. I figured I'd get a few orders. Maybe a couple comments from old Etsy customers who'd find their way to the new site. Instead, 2 days later, Zoe burst into my apartment with her phone in the air, eyes wide like she'd seen a ghost. "You're not going to believe this. We just got a huge order." "Okay," I said slowly. "Like, how huge?" She shoved the phone in my face. Juliana Ray. From LA. She bought the entire lapis lazuli collection. I stared at the name. Juliana Ray. Hollywood actress. Academy Award nominee. Fashion icon. "No way," I whispered. "Yes. Way. It's her verified shipping address. She wants rush delivery. I think this is real." That night, I packed each item myself. Tissue paper. Logo box. A handwritten note. Thank you for giving an independent artist a chance. May these stones bring you peace, strength, and a little sparkle. I slipped in a card with a custom QR code. Just in case she wanted to leave a review. Just in case this tiny miracle could ripple into something even bigger. I didn't sleep that night. But when I finally sat down at my work table in the morning light, surrounded by sketches, stones, and unfinished wire loops, one thing was clear. They kicked me out. But they couldn't keep me down. And the world? It was about to find out just how far a girl with nothing, and everything, to prove could go. 3 days after I sent the package to Juliana Ray, my phone buzzed at exactly 7:12 a.m. I had barely touched my tea when Zoe burst through the door with a sound that was somewhere between a shriek and a squeal. She posted. She posted. She actually posted. I blinked, trying to catch up. Posted what? Zoe shoved her phone into my hands. It was open to Instagram. There, in full color, was Juliana Ray, posing in a white dress on the red carpet of some exclusive indie premiere in LA, wearing the Ocean Whisperer hairpin. The caption was simple. Sometimes the most powerful pieces are the quietest. Thank you, at eliseco.jewelry. I just stared. The screen blurred for a moment as tears burned in my eyes. That wasn't just a celebrity endorsement. That was validation. That was my voice, once silenced, now echoing across an industry I once feared I'd never reach. By noon, we had 527 new site visitors. By dinner, the porch light necklace and the afternoon tea hairpin had sold out. That evening, I received a direct message from a stylist at a hit Netflix series, asking about a potential seasonal collaboration. And in between all the orders, likes, reposts, and emails, one quiet thought kept surfacing. Grandma Elise would be so proud. I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. But that didn't mean I didn't feel the wound they left behind. Sometimes at night, as I sat at my crafting table surrounded by the warm hum of creative energy, I thought about that dinner. About the silence as they turned away. About how my mother quietly handed me a paper bag like I was a stranger they pitied. I hadn't spoken to them since that night. But the universe had a funny way of forcing confrontations. It was a sunny Saturday when it happened. I had just picked up a special order for a client, a lapis bracelet meant as a 50th birthday gift, and stopped at a cozy little cafe by the lake. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt it. A pair of eyes watching me. Familiar. Hesitant. I turned. Timothy. My younger brother. He was behind the bar, wiping down a mug, but the second our eyes met, he dropped it with a crash. Thelma, he said, stunned. I gave a polite nod. My heart beat faster, but I kept my expression calm. Hey, Tim. He looked me up and down. You look different. I shrugged. A lot can change in 6 months. He came around the counter and stood awkwardly beside me, like he wasn't sure whether to hug me or not. We had always been close growing up, at least until the night they kicked me out. I hadn't expected him to stop them. But I'd also hoped he'd at least text. He hadn't. They've been asking about you, he said softly. Mom's been crying a lot. Dad doesn't talk much anymore. Didn't stop them from locking me out in the rain, I replied. Not bitterly, just honestly. Timothy flinched. I didn't agree with them. I wanted to say something. You didn't, I said. And I don't hate you for it. But I needed you to know that silence hurt too. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. Would you ever talk to them? If I brought them over? I didn't answer right away. But after a moment, I said, tomorrow. 10 a.m. My place. If they're ready to listen without judgment, I'll talk. And just like that, the door cracked open. The next morning, I stood by the window of my apartment, watching as a silver sedan pulled into the lot. Timothy stepped out first. Then my father. Then my mother. They looked like strangers and ghosts all at once. My mother's eyes welled up the second I opened the door. My father stood stiffly, like he didn't know whether to apologize or scold me. They stepped inside, and I invited them to sit in the sunlit living room. The scent of tea filled the air, and the table beside us held a collection of Elise and Company pieces in progress. It was my world now. Not hidden. Not embarrassed. Mine. My father cleared his throat. This place, it's beautiful. Looks expensive. I nodded. It is. I paid a year's rent up front. His eyebrows arched. How? I didn't hesitate. I stood, walked to my drawer, and returned with the laminated ticket. I placed it on the table gently. I won the lottery the night you kicked me out, I said. 31.8 million. After taxes. Silence. Complete, consuming silence. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father stared at the ticket like it was forged. You're joking, he said. I'm not. I confirmed it the next morning. I used it to build my business. Quietly. Carefully. Without anyone's help. The weight of my words seemed to settle like a fog. Finally, my father looked up. So you're rich now? I tilted my head. Rich in money, yes. But also rich in experience. Rich in the knowledge that your approval is not required for me to succeed. That passion isn't a weakness. And that being thrown out of your home doesn't mean you stop existing. My mother's eyes spilled over. We thought we were helping you grow up. We thought. You thought I needed control. Not support, I interrupted gently. But I don't want a fight. I don't want revenge. I just want boundaries. I looked at both of them. From now on, if you want to be in my life, you need to accept 3 things. 1. I'm independent. 2. I don't want or need your financial guidance. And 3. You try to control me again, I will disappear for good. There was silence. Then, to my surprise, my father nodded. A small, almost imperceptible nod. You're right. My mother whispered, please don't disappear. Please. I poured them tea. No one spoke for a few minutes. Then Timothy, trying to cut the tension, looked at my bracelet. You made this? I smiled. Every piece in this room. He leaned closer. It's beautiful. My father looked at a necklace nearby and said quietly, it's not flashy. But it has depth. And for the first time in my life, I heard my father describe my work as art. I didn't cry. But something uncoiled in my chest. A knot of pain I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. We finished tea in near silence. But it wasn't the silence of estrangement. It was the silence of people finally trying to understand each other. When they left, my mom hugged me, tentative, like asking for permission. I let her. I didn't forgive them that day. But I started to. The morning after they visited, I sat in my quiet apartment, my fingers hovering over my work table. The light streamed through the windows just right, like it always did when Grandma Elise would say, this is the kind of sun that blesses a beginning. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. But something in me had changed. I'd spent so long chasing their approval, burning through my 20s trying to prove I was worth keeping. When they kicked me out, I thought I lost everything. But standing here now, over my own 2 feet, in my own space, building my own brand, I knew I had gained more than they could ever offer. A few weeks later, I sent an email. No calls. No dramatic letters. Just a plain subject line. Sunday dinner. And inside, just one sentence. If you want a fresh start, this is your invitation. 7 p.m. My apartment. At 6:58 p.m., the doorbell rang. Timothy stepped in first, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. My mother followed, holding a box of blueberry muffins, the kind she used to make when I was sick as a child. My father stood at the back, looking awkward but present. I had cooked pasta from scratch. Roasted vegetables. Made tiny cinnamon apple tarts like the ones Grandma used to bake. The table was simple, but warm. Inviting. My mother took a seat and gently placed the muffin box down. They're not as good as Elise's, but... I tried. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Halfway through dinner, Timothy glanced at my laptop resting on the nearby shelf. "You've got a new tab open," he said. "Elise Foundation?" My heart stuttered. "Oh," I said. "That's the other project." My mother looked curious. "A foundation?" I nodded. "A small arts grant. For young creatives without family support. I fund it anonymously through Elise and Company. Every piece I sell contributes to it." Timothy smiled. "That's amazing." Then he added, surprising me completely, "I actually saw one of the scholarship applications. A girl named Lena. She got a grant last month, right?" I blinked. "Yes, wait, how do you know?" "She's my girlfriend." And then I laughed. One of those raw, unexpected laughs that bubble up from somewhere so honest it stings. "You're serious?" I asked. He nodded. "She showed me the letter. Said the foundation helped her buy her first DSLR camera." Lena arrived not long after, nervous but kind-eyed. She brought a sketchbook filled with jewelry design ideas and handmade paper packaging samples. As we spoke, I realized she wasn't just talented, she was driven in the same way I had been, alone in my room, bending wire under a desk lamp. "I'd love to intern, or help somehow," Lena said. "Even if just for experience." I didn't hesitate. "You're hired. Starting tomorrow." That night, as we cleaned the dishes and packed leftover food into containers, I noticed my mother looking around the apartment again. Her eyes settled on a bracelet resting on a small wooden shelf, silver chain with tiny ceramic beads, pale lavender and cream. "I've never seen one like that," she said. "It's called Quiet Apology." She looked at me. "For the giver or the receiver?" "Both." She didn't say anything more. She just touched the bead gently, then turned back to help with the plates. 3 weeks later, my father forwarded me an article from the New York Times about handmade luxury crafts breaking into the international market. He included a one-line message. "Have you ever thought of submitting to the Museum of Applied Arts?" I didn't respond. Not yet. But I saved the message. Things moved fast after that. With Lena's help, we expanded our designs. Introduced a Seasons of Elise collection. Zoe, our designer, revamped the website with new photographs, updated typography, and even added a storytelling section, where each item came with a memory. Sales doubled. Then tripled. Then the unexpected happened. Juliana Ray posted again, this time from Italy, wearing a new Elise and Company necklace. In the caption, she wrote, "When I wear this, I feel like I'm not pretending to be strong. I just am." The photo went viral. A major fashion blog picked up the brand. Orders exploded. And then came the email that stopped everything. From the Nora Whitmore Gallery, downtown Orlando. Subject, proposal for Elise and Company. Showcase exhibition. I read it 5 times, heart pounding. They were offering me a solo exhibit. Not just a feature, but a full, custom-curated, multi-room presentation titled Roots and Wings, The Story of Elise. I didn't cry. But I did sit in stunned silence for an hour, staring at the wall. It was happening. My work, the thing they once called a hobby, a phase, shiny junk, was going to hang under spotlights, behind glass. With guests. With press. With purpose. I spent the next 4 months designing the collection. 20 pieces. Each one named after a memory tied to Grandma Elise. The porch at dusk brooch. The unsent letter locket. The lucky sewing box cuff. Each stone, each twist of silver, was layered with memory and meaning. And at the center of it all, I placed the roots and wings necklace, a piece so intricate, so delicate, it took me 19 nights to finish. A blend of rose gold, moonstone, and aquamarine, it symbolized exactly what I had become. Grounded. But free. Opening night arrived. People flooded into the gallery, dressed in cocktail attire, sipping champagne. I stood at the center of it all, wearing a simple silk blouse and the original pair of seashell earrings I made when I was 12. The same ones Grandma Elise wore all summer. Photographers snapped pictures. A journalist from an arts magazine interviewed me near the sewing box display. But the moment that stole my breath came quietly. My father and mother stood at the entrance of the hall. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't draw attention. They just stood still, staring at a photo on the wall of me, age 9, sitting beside Elise on the back porch, stringing beads. My mother's hand covered her mouth. My father turned toward me. He didn't say anything dramatic. Didn't ask for forgiveness. He simply walked over, reached out, and touched the bracelet on my wrist. "You made this?" he asked. I nodded. "It's beautiful. It tells a story." That's all I needed to hear. That was his apology. That was his acknowledgement. That was closure. And as I stood there, camera flashes going off around me, my jewelry shining under gallery lights, the people who once told me I couldn't make a life out of shiny rocks now silently bearing witness to the truth. I didn't just survive. I rose. And the world? It was watching. The night after the gallery opening, I couldn't sleep. Not because of nerves, but because I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. The kind that doesn't come from applause or money. The kind that comes from knowing you walked through fire, and came out carrying your own light. I sat by the window of my apartment, a soft rain tapping against the glass, the city below still glittering with life. On the table beside me was a single photograph from the exhibit, one that didn't make it onto the gallery walls. It was me at 12, grinning proudly, holding up a misshapen wire bracelet with 2 cracked beads. Grandma Elise had snapped the photo just after I gave it to her. On the back, she'd written, in pencil, "Every masterpiece starts as a wild idea." That was her legacy. Not money. Not pressure. Just belief. The next morning, I received a letter in the mail. A real letter, not an email. Cream envelope. Elegant handwriting. It was from a woman named Constance Fields, executive director of the Museum of Applied Arts in Boston. Inside was a formal proposal. "We would be honored to invite you, Thelma Whitman, founder of Elise & Company, to submit your work for inclusion in our 2025 exhibition American Artisans, Modern Renaissance. Your story and creations represent the very heart of what this exhibit aims to celebrate." I sat in silence for a long time. Boston. The city my parents had once begged me to move to, for an internship I never wanted. The place they said real professionals built their future. Now, Boston was coming to me. And the story just kept unfolding. The Elise Foundation had started small. Quiet donations to struggling artists. No press. No big announcements. Just small grants. Rent help. Equipment purchases. Quiet belief. But after the exhibit, everything changed. Artists started tagging us in their posts. Funded by Elise Foundation. This show wouldn't be possible without Elise. I watched their stories bloom like wildflowers, raw, colorful, determined. There was Janelle, a black painter from Tampa who used to sleep on the studio floor after waitressing until 2 a.m., now preparing for her first gallery show. And Tomas, a wood sculptor living in an old truck in Jacksonville, who used his grant to buy tools and carved the Elise Foundation logo into the handmade sign that hung outside our gallery exhibit. In just 12 months, we had awarded grants to 27 young artists. Each one a seed my grandmother would have planted herself. One Sunday evening, while I was sketching a new line of minimalist stone pendants, Timothy called. "Hey," he said, his voice tight with a nervous smile. "Lena and I have something to show you." They arrived an hour later with a laptop and a bottle of wine. On the screen was a proposal, a digital arts education series for high school students, under the Elise Foundation banner. "Lena wrote the curriculum," Timothy said. "And I've already run the numbers. We can start with 5 pilot schools. We're not asking for your money. Just your blessing." I leaned back, speechless for a moment. "You really want to be a part of this?" I asked. He nodded. "I do. I've spent my whole life watching people shrink their dreams because they thought they had to. This foundation, it's proof that art isn't a luxury. It's survival. It's truth." Lena added softly, "It's hope." And that's how Timothy, my baby brother who once stood silent while I was thrown out into the rain, became the financial coordinator of the Elise Foundation. He didn't ask for access to my lottery winnings. He didn't need to. He just believed. Like Elise did. 3 months later, my mother emailed me a photo. It was a ceramic bowl, lopsided, uneven, but with soft speckled glaze in lilac and cream. Underneath it, a single line. "I call this one, Learning to See." She'd enrolled in a weekly pottery class. And she kept sending updates. "This plate cracked in the kiln. I named it, Grace Under Heat." "This one? It's called Lost, but Never Gone." My dad wasn't as vocal. But every so often, he'd text me a link to an article about independent artisans disrupting global luxury markets. Once, he even called just to ask, "Do you think your pieces could qualify for museum curation?" "I already got invited," I told him. He went quiet. Then said, "Well, good. You deserve that." And it didn't come out as pride exactly. But it didn't need to. The story of Elise and Company reached more people than I ever imagined. What started as handmade pieces under a fake name became a fully functioning brand, a foundation, and, most importantly, a movement. We didn't just sell jewelry. We sold resilience. Each piece came with a story card, printed in warm serif font on cream linen paper. One of them read, "This stone was chosen for the ones told they weren't enough. For the ones who turned broken pieces into beauty. For the ones who believed, even when they were left out in the rain." Customers began sending photos of themselves wearing our pieces at job interviews, graduations, chemo treatments, art shows. And then one day, I received a package in the mail. No return address. Just a small white box, wrapped in craft paper, and inside, a tiny wire bracelet. Bent, uneven. With 2 cracked beads. And a note in familiar handwriting. "Thelma, I found this in the old keepsake box in the attic. I kept it all these years. You were right. This wasn't a toy. It was the beginning of everything. Love, Mom." I sat down. Held it in my palm like a relic. Like proof that maybe, just maybe, even the hardest hearts can learn to soften. Even the ones that once told you to get out. Even the ones who forgot how to believe. The bracelet my mother sent sat on my windowsill for days. I couldn't bring myself to move it. It felt sacred. Not because it was beautiful, it wasn't, but because it was proof. Proof that even people who shut doors on you can, eventually, leave a light on. And yet, healing isn't a straight line. 2 weeks after I received the bracelet, I got a call from my cousin Rachel. She sounded tense. Nervous. "You may want to sit down," she said. I laughed dryly. I'm used to drama. Go ahead. She hesitated. Your parents are suing Danielle. I sat up straighter. Wait, what? Danielle? Rachel explained. Danielle had invested nearly $500,000, money gifted from my parents, into a real estate project with her husband. It flopped. Badly. The company dissolved. The funds were gone. My parents, in desperation and shame, had filed a civil suit to recover $350,000. Their own daughter. They're blaming her for ruining the family's financial safety net, Rachel said. They're unraveling, Thelma. For a moment, I was speechless. Then a single, cold truth settled over me like morning fog. They only value what they can control. Danielle had done everything they asked. Corporate job. MBA. Marriage. And yet, the moment she stumbled, they turned on her. I felt something tighten in my chest. Because suddenly, it wasn't about me anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about breaking the cycle. About choosing to rise instead of returning fire. That night, I lit a candle on my table. Not for anything spiritual, but because I needed a ritual. A breath between the past and the present. I wrote Danielle an email. I heard. I'm not writing to choose sides. Just know, you're not alone. If you need a lawyer, I can recommend someone. No judgment. No strings. She didn't reply right away. But 2 days later, I found a small envelope slipped under my apartment door. Inside was a card with a single line. I'm sorry. For how I looked down on your dream. Turns out we were both trying to survive in different cages. I kept that card too. As the Elise Foundation expanded, we launched a mentorship program, pairing young artists with established ones. Not just grants, but guidance. We called it Wings. Each participant received not just funds, but letters from past recipients. Stories. Encouragement. Real connection. And the stories that came back were breathtaking. One girl from Detroit wrote, My mother laughed when I told her I wanted to be a textile designer. She said it was poor girl nonsense. But when I got your grant, and my name was printed on that award letter, she finally saw me. Not just as her daughter, but as someone becoming. Another from Arkansas said, I used my grant to build a kiln from scraps. It's crooked, but it fires. That's kind of how I feel too. Crooked. But burning anyway. Every time I read those letters, I saw myself again. Dragging a suitcase in the rain. Shaking on a motel bed. Holding a crumpled lottery ticket, too afraid to hope. I never stopped being that girl. I just learned how to lead her forward. 1 year after the gallery showcase, Elise and Company was invited to participate in Paris Design Week. Our pieces would be displayed in a boutique showroom alongside global artisans. That meant a trip. Press. Exposure. The kind of thing my parents would once dream of for Danielle. I asked Timothy to come with me. And Lena. And Zoe. We made it a team trip. But before I left, I made a choice that felt impossible 6 months ago. I invited my parents to dinner. Not just any dinner. A family one. Sunday night. Same place, same time. When they arrived, they brought flowers. A bottle of wine. And this time? No awkward silences. Just space. We ate. We laughed. We talked about the trip. My father asked, Are you nervous? I smiled. No. I'm ready. And I was. But just as they were about to leave, my mother turned and said, Can I show you something? She reached into her bag and pulled out a box. Inside were 5 small clay pieces, cups, plates, 1 oddly shaped bowl, and each had a name written underneath. She pointed to the biggest one. This one's called the room upstairs. It was the old name they used for my childhood bedroom. The one I was kicked out of. The one she now used for her pottery. I made it while thinking about you, she said. I felt my throat tighten. But I didn't cry. I simply reached out and touched the edge of the bowl. It was uneven. A little burnt. But it was beautiful. Because it was honest. Paris was beyond anything I imagined. At the boutique, one buyer asked about the origins of my designs. I told them about Elise. About seashell earrings. About quiet kitchens and broken dreams that healed into something radiant. And when I spoke, I didn't feel like I was performing. I felt like I was remembering. On our final day, I stood on a bridge over the Seine, watching the water shimmer under the city lights. Timothy stood beside me. He didn't say much. But after a moment, he handed me his phone. On it was a draft of an article titled, "What I Learned from My Sister, the Artist Who Chose Herself." "I'm submitting it to a blog I follow," he said. "Just wanted you to know before I send it." I read the first line out loud. When Thelma left home, I thought she was running. Now I know she was building. I couldn't speak. Because that, right there, was the moment I knew. The past no longer had its claws in me. I was no longer trying to prove anything. Not to them. Not to the world. Not even to myself. 1 year and 8 months after the day I was thrown out with a suitcase and soaked dreams, I stood on stage in front of a quiet crowd at the Nora Whitmore Gallery in Orlando. Not as a guest. Not as an artist hidden behind someone else's name. But as Thelma Whitman, founder of Elise & Company, director of the Elise Foundation, and the woman who turned a lottery ticket into a movement. The spotlight warmed my face. My palms didn't shake this time. And before me sat a room filled with faces, some I knew, some I didn't, but all of them leaning forward, waiting to hear my story. "My name is Thelma Whitman," I began, voice calm but steady. "Just over a year ago, I was kicked out of my parents' home with $342 in cash, a maxed-out credit card, and a suitcase packed with little more than belief." A hush fell over the room. "I'm not here to tell you a fairy tale," I continued. "Because the night I left, I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel lucky. I felt abandoned." I paused, scanning the room. My parents sat in the back row, side by side, their faces unreadable but present. Timothy and Lena were beside them. Zoe was in the front, tears already forming. "I've heard people say I'm lucky," I said. "That winning the lottery changed everything." And in some ways, it did. But let me be clear, luck is just a bridge. What builds the road is what you do with it. A beat passed. No one moved. I didn't win because I got money. I won because I was ready when that money came. Because I had bent copper wire into shapes at 2 a.m. for years. Because I believed in art even when my own family didn't believe in me. Applause stirred, soft at first, then rising like a wave. I closed with a memory. When I was 12, my grandmother wore a pair of seashell earrings I made with glue and fishing wire. She wore them to the grocery store, to church, to brunch with her friends. One time I asked her, "Why do you wear those? They look like a school project." And she said. My throat caught. But I pushed through. She said, "Because they remind me that something doesn't have to be perfect to be priceless." I smiled, letting the words hang. That's what Elise & Company is. That's what I am. Not perfect. But priceless. When I stepped down, the room rose with me. A standing ovation. Cameras flashed. But all I saw were two things. My mother, her hand over her heart. And my father, clapping slowly, tears in his eyes. Later that night, I slipped away from the reception and walked to the edge of Lake Eola. I stood at the water's edge and pulled a small object from my coat pocket, a hairpin made from lapis lazuli and sterling silver, the last one I'd made from Grandma Elise's original stone box. I dropped to one knee and gently placed it on a flat stone near the water. "For you," I whispered. "You saw me when no one else did. And now, they finally do, too." The wind rustled the palm trees. A soft ripple crossed the lake. Behind me, footsteps approached. "I knew I'd find you out here," Timothy said, settling beside me. "You always did know where to look," I replied. He handed me a small white envelope. "What's this?" I asked. He grinned. "Read it later. It's not business. Just something from the team." I tucked it into my coat without looking. Then I stared up at the sky, clear, starlit, open. "Do you think we're meant to go through all this?" I asked. "The hurt. The rejection. The rain." Timothy shrugged. "I think, sometimes we have to lose the people we used to be in order to find the ones we were always meant to become." When I got home that night, I opened the envelope. Inside was a hand-drawn card with signatures from the entire Elise and Company team. And one sentence written in the center. "Thank you for choosing yourself. Because when you did, you made space for the rest of us to do the same." I pressed the card to my chest, the emotion swelling, and finally, let a tear fall. Not from sadness, but from completion. 6 months later, Elise and Company launched its flagship store in Winter Park. A restored colonial-style shop with high ceilings, glass displays, soft lighting, and a sign out front that read simply, "Elise and Company. Handmade from memory. Built on belief." The opening day crowd stretched around the block. And at the center of the store, under a display case of rose quartz necklaces, I placed a small plaque. "In honor of Elise, who believed that every handmade thing holds a story. And every person has the right to tell theirs." I'm Thelma Whitman. The girl who was told shiny stones were a waste of time. The daughter thrown out for dreaming too loudly. The artist who almost quit until the world whispered back, "Not yet." And if you've ever been told your dream is foolish, if you've ever been left in the rain with nothing but a suitcase, know this. You are not lost. You are just between chapters. And sometimes, your story doesn't begin until everything else falls apart. What Thelma built wasn't just a jewelry brand. She built a legacy of defiance, beauty, and belief. Her story is proof that success doesn't always look like a corner office or a 5-year plan. Sometimes, it looks like wire and stone. Like silence and small steps. Like surviving long enough to shine on your own terms. Thank you for watching this story on Revenge Echoes, where every betrayal has its reckoning, and every silent voice has its day to be heard. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if the world told you to quit, but your heart told you to try one more time?